Yeah. Congratulations on the film, first and foremost.
Thank you.
I watched it last night quite late in the evening because I'd come back from seeing the new Wes Anderson film. So I was like, oh, I'll watch it before I go to bed. And it was so overwhelming, I have to say. Like, you made me cry, you made me feel things. It was quite an overwhelming experience, I have to say. A great experience, but an overwhelming experience.
Yeah. Sometimes feelings are overwhelming, but there are things that need to be felt sometimes. So I'm glad, yeah, it touched you and made you feel all the feels.
Yeah, it certainly did. It certainly did. So take me back to, because obviously you've done a few documentaries before. Take me back to the point when you wanted to transition into doing a feature film. Was there a moment that that was something you wanted to do before, or did someone kind of ask you if that was something you wanted to do, or how did it first kind of come about in that instance?
Yeah, well, when first made my feature documentary halfway, that just kind of came through not really having a choice. We were made homeless and I decided that I wanted to film in order to try and take some power back, in order to make our voices feel heard in quite an invisible experience. But it was something that, yeah, I'd never pre-planned. It was just like, I'm just going to film this and then see what happens. And it was the same actually with like fiction film. I'd never planned writing anything. Just wasn't on my radar. And then after Halfway came out, I received BAFTA Breakthrough, and BAFTA invited two producers, Cecilia and Olivier from Parkville Pictures, to come along to the screening, and they just loved the film and said, "Have I ever thought about writing anything before?" Yeah, and it was just that question really. I knew that I had this idea for a documentary that was about these women that I'd met outside Houses of Parliament, which these were like phenomenal, passionate kind of women fighting to be heard outside Houses of Parliament for their children to come home with them. And I don't believe in putting women on screen as victims. And they would have been, if I were to film it as a documentary, they would have been going through a very, very traumatic experience. And so I felt like if I could write it, I could actually write a more three-dimensional representation and something that could have like those moments of light and joy and humor as well. And that was really this spark. And now I love both. I love making fiction. I love making documentary. I think there's a place for both of them, and it was really dependent on like the needs of the story. And but I loved I guess like this creative freedom that you get with fiction and also working with a bigger team. I've made documentaries on my own for so long, like, or me and a couple of other people, and this making something with like 100 creative people all weaving their energy, all showing up to give to that story is like quite electrifying to be around, and I loved it.
In terms of writing, is it obviously because you've come from documentaries and you said about, and it comes across on screen about how you wanted to keep it real, and there's some scenes in there where you feel like you're just kind of watching the situation unfold. It doesn't feel like it's scripted and all that kind of stuff. Did you write the script specifically so it was kind of loose in that way, that you wanted to bring kind of the realness to it rather than kind of scripting every single beat? Because some of the performances and some of the scenes, they just feel like you've just put the camera on and gone, okay, this is what I want to achieve, and just let the actors kind of do what they want to do as if you were making a documentary.
Good question. I think there's like a few layers to that. I guess when I was writing, but coming from a documentary background and coming from research and also writing so much of myself in the characters, um, I think brings that realness and that authenticity, because it's all about like those little observed moments, that really that feel full of life. Then when we went into the casting and started working with people from lived experience or people or actors for the first time, I think that's when you really feel the script live in someone's bones and it becomes embodied, and you start to feel like what feels real and what doesn't. And that was kind of like the next layer of refining. And then once we chose our brilliant dynamic duo, Posey Sterling and Idil Ahmed, we then workshopped the script for 3 days, and it was a deepening of their chemistry, a deepening of their relationship on and off screen, but it was also really to weave a bit more of them into the script and these characters. And then I think the final stage was when I was on set. I always I never wanted to be attached to what was on the script. It was these are the lines, but then make them feel true for you. And also there's so much space for like improvisation and freedom because I think that the spaces in between and the spaces of surrender or like non-attachment actually is where the magic happens. And there's a lot of scenes like a little golden nugget is one of the scenes, which is where Molly, and I always get Molly and Posey mixed
Gonna
up,
say it's
where Molly,
kind of fused
and
together. Yeah.
then people on set call me Molly or Posey and her Daisy May, and it's all just one big smush. Um, but basically, one of the scenes where Posey and her daughter meet for the first time in the contact center, that was meant to be with the little boy too. And we got in the morning and we basically got pulled into an emergency meeting. And our poor, beautiful boy, Luke Howard, who plays Leo, had become sick for that day and he couldn't join. And so I had to come up with a version of that scene because we had to shoot it because we're an independent, small budget movie that just needs to
Yeah.
get what they need to get. And so yeah, we improvised, and that was just by the magic of this was um Tegan Mia's first scene as an actor. She was completely, street cast, who plays Ava and Posey. They just made magic on set, and it was using these. Okay, well, this is what would happen. This is like why a child wouldn't turn up. Using, I worked with a good friend of mine. She had her children removed, and became an advisor to the script and as a lived experience advisor. So I got on the phone and I was like, how would this happen? Why would a kid not show up? And then we ended up improvising the scene, and it's an incredible scene. And it was just because like we all put our heads together, and through this moment that could have been a pure drama situation, we were just like, you know what, this is what's going to happen. These are the steps, and we just flowed with it. And same with the cinematographer Jamie Ackroyd as well, just capturing that beauty was magic.
I was on your Twitter yesterday and saw that you retweeted some stuff from Sean Baker, and obviously Sean Baker has done a lot of street casting, and obviously he won Academy Awards now, and he made this impassioned statement about independent cinema that everyone hopes kind of continues to reverberate. I just wonder for you what it was about him. What is it about him as a filmmaker that kind of, I guess, attaches you to him, and also in terms of street casting, what that gives you that maybe going down the route of getting proper actors in allows you to kind of add those extra layers into the film, and whether that was always the plan that you've always wanted to have the street casting rather than but had just having actors all the way trained actors all the way through this kind of film.
Good question. I think also that's the problem with Twitter. I'm like not a huge fan of him,
Oh,
but some of his work.
some, what he said, I guess recently, what he said about independent cinema, perhaps more than him as a filmmaker.
Yeah, yeah, but I was just gonna say I loved Prince of Broadway, which was a film he
Mm.
made years ago. I really loved the realism and the fact that it feels so lived in, and that you're a film as an audience member, you're literally being taken on the ride of the with these characters. And I think so many brilliant filmmakers do that. And and it's also a very documentary style being led through the process. Um, I think, yeah, what was the question about street cast actors?
Just in terms of, I guess in terms of making this kind of film, what doing street casting gives you that maybe if you'd have gone with just seasoned performers or performers that have been there before, what that gives you,
Mm.
kind of the vice versa of it, if you like.
Good question. Okay, so I feel personally, for me, it's alchemy. So when we take people that have actually lived these experiences and we turn them into something beautiful, you're alchemizing your story. That's what storytelling is for me. It's taking your pain or things that have maybe or taking your experiences and turning it into like lived wisdom. And when we started the casting process, it was really, I wanted to have that power play. You know, what happens when you take women that have been on the other side of the table and you put them in positions of power, people that have maybe been affected by a system that talks about them rather than to them? What happens when you put them on the other side of the table, when they become the lawyers, the judges, the housing officers? That's something beyond, like, maybe you can't see it, or but you can feel it because there's a level of compassion or understanding that's lent to those characters, or those, yeah, those positions that someone that is pretending wouldn't have. And also, this was a cast of women, and the same with the crew. Everyone could feel some aspect of the film or the story that we were telling inside of themselves. We all have mothers, we all have families that maybe people didn't always get what they needed, or maybe they've been somehow linked to a system, a school system, whatever it is, that where they felt they weren't listened or heard. So I think in some capacity everyone can resonate, and I think when you create a space, a safe space for people to come and tell their stories from a vulnerable position. And I really reiterate safe. I think sometimes the industry can be extractive, where it's like, I'm going to take your story rather than I'm going to hold space for your story. And I think that's why we worked in a trauma informed way, why that's like foundation to my values of making filmmaking, is like we have to create something sacred and safe so that people can have the space to come and talk about what they've experienced, and through that you can become so empowered. And that's what happened when I made Halfway. I took my pain, my experiences, and I turned it into something that could empower me and be medicine for other people. So, yeah,
Just very
long
quickly,
answer, but alchemy.
just very quickly before I have to wrap up, just a quick word on Posey. I mean, it's extraordinary performance, and she carries so much, and also singing, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I just wondered,
Yeah.
what was the key aspect when you first met her that convinced you this is the person I need to make this film?
Yeah, when I wrote Molly, I was very open to what was like, to the casting process. But then when Posey Sterling walked in, she was the first person that walked in through the door. And I couldn't believe that what I'd written on the page was this woman that walked in front of me. And Posey is just this natural, like energetic, full of energy, full of life, full of an ability to take um, situations and always find the light and the hope and the love in situations. And I think that's what Molly is. And also this kind of like ferocious determination. She had this ability to carry every aspect of what it means to be a woman. And that is who she is as a person, but it's what she brings to the screen. And when you watch her, you just feel like you could watch her forever, basically. That's what I feel when I watch her. And she's in every scene, and she just carries it with so much like grace and um aliveness.
Yeah, she's extraordinary in the film, and the film itself is extraordinary. And I wish you all the best with it. I can forgive the West Ham memorabilia. I can forgive that. I can
That's
forgive
my
that.
family. That's
Oh
my
yeah, I won't take I won't,
culture.
I won't take any of my 5-star rating off because of West Ham. Because as a Spurs fan, I had to kind of look away. But
No, I appreciate that. I appreciate the
uh,
generosity.
I wish you all the best with the film. I hope people go and seek it out. And we need more films like this in the place with all these big movies. So I wish you all the best, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for your beautiful questions.
No worries. You're welcome. Take care.